Welcome, welcome. Today I want to talk about this. Don't believe everything you see on TV. And of course, don't believe everything you hear from people either. This phrase has often been used as a reminder to think critically about, media. TV news, entertainment, ads, and even documentaries can contain bias, selective editing, outdated information, or even sensational framing. And a good approach is to just compare whatever it is that you're observing or watching to multiple sources. Check original evidence when possible, and distinguish what's just reporting from opinion. Really important. And I'm sure you're all, for the most part, familiar with the more common examples that include, shady lawyers that overcharge you, and you're not guaranteed to win cases, or some overrated item or product on a late night infomercial, right? And a lot of us, we know that. We know that whatever is on TV isn't necessarily something that's guaranteed to be valuable. All right, either because of experience or our parents have raised us that way if we were lucky, or maybe for some of us it's just common sense, or we're naturally skeptical of external influences. It's also worth remembering though that not everything on TV is misleading, right? There are many journalists, educators, documentary makers who do careful work, right? So there could be some useful educational stuff on TV too sometimes. But the key here is that um, you know you want to apply skepticism without assuming everything is false, right? So you're wearing your skepticism lenses, but you're not gonna just assume everything, 100% of everything you come across is wrong. But some things are, many things are. Now, I want to share one such example. I just remember quite vividly, and I was a child at the time. I was a kid when I first heard about this. Now, thankfully, I wasn't involved directly with this, but I did, you know, monitor how this affected, thousands of people's lives in America. So, there was like, I believe somewhere around 70,000 individuals at the peak in the United States who were tricked, deceived, and scammed out of their precious money and time by this for-profit technical institute called ITT Tech. Okay, so I was around 12 years old when I, first ran into some of their TV commercials, and after running into a couple of them that were just, spammed aggressively actually throughout the day, I came to realize that they were just targeting adults of all ages, particularly those who were just looking to make a switch in their jobs or careers, just to have better opportunities and pay in life. And in this case, they were trying to attract them to the IT industry, obviously, like right, it's like in the name itself, but also in other fields too, like I don't know, design, architecture, drafting, whatever it was that they were catering to. But in the case of IT, I do remember this better because it was actually a novel industry. So it was relatively this hot new thing at the time. And it's true, there was a significant demand for it. And I remember like a lot of people trying to get certificates related to it, and they would sign up for cheap programs, sometimes expensive ones, in all kinds of institutes and organizations, in hopes of starting a new career path in this industry. And having said that, even as an older child, I realized like something was off about this particular company. And deep down, I felt that there were some kind of scam. I didn't know the extent of how they plan to deceive, their clients, but I was always under the impression that if a business or company offered a valuable service or product, that word of mouth, for the most part, would do the talking for them, right? It would help them find success. Unfortunately, almost like 2 decades later, after watching those commercials when I was 12, I came to know that despite being founded in 1969 and growing up to 130 campuses in 38 states in the US, they closed in 2016, 3 years before COVID. And by then, everyone just came to know them as a predatory for-profit scheme that just lied about, many things: the employability of their graduates, the quality of their instructors and equipment. They offered worthless credits that rarely transferred to other institutions and universities. They faked job placement statistics, and they even offered, not surprisingly, predatory loans among, many other things. So just imagine you have thousands and thousands and thousands of graduates all across the United States who didn't get the education that they paid for. They didn't develop the necessary skills to find employment opportunities. They graduated with useless credits and certificates, and more importantly, they graduated into high debt. And in the end, most of them couldn't land the career change and jobs they were after. It was just a complete disaster in terms of time, energy, money, effort. It was a total heartbreaker for these people. And I do, feel sorry for them. And something kind of similar happened with these coding boot camps that just hit the mainstream, I think around 2011, 2012, right? And not surprisingly, I had the same kind of impression about these as well. Not as bad as ITT Tech, but they reminded me of ITT Tech because of the timing of when they were advertising their services. So just keep in mind, apply some context and critical thinking here, please. This was a time when the Great Recession happened. And I remember this because I graduated into this damn recession. I actually, in my case, I graduated in 2012. So I really remember things vividly then as well. Again, many of these boot camps were predatory practices who took advantage of people who really didn't know much about the tech industry at all. Granted, some people did find success with them for whatever reason. Maybe they were just naturally good at understanding code, software, and even if the boot camp was mediocre or mid, it was kind of lacking, didn't matter. Perhaps some of them were active during the entire learning experience, regardless of the quality of boot camp they went through. And it's also possible, they were asking their instructors a lot of questions about the concepts. They were quite attentive. Or who knows, maybe they attended a particular boot camp program that really had genuine instructors who truly did care about them and did the best they could to prepare them for, um, the world of tech. So here's the thing: don't blindly assume that something that requires tremendous energy, effort, time, and money out of you will automatically guarantee you success. Fortunately, that's not always the case, and sadly, regrettably, it's an evil part of human nature just to take advantage of others. This isn't anything new, you know. So just be careful out there and always do research, apply critical thinking before making a costly decision. And I know this sounds like common sense to a lot of people, particularly neurotypical people who kind of may already have a lot of experience with this. I don't know, but for a lot of neurodivergent folks, these kinds of situations, sorry, might not always be so clear cut, right? They might not be able to pick up on that. Some of us do, many of us do, but there's a lot that still don't, sadly. And then they find themselves, in these tricky situations once they're done with this entire process. and they say, "Oh my God, oh, why did I do this? Like now I'm screwed in terms of money, time, energy, blah blah blah." And it's such a shitty feeling. You don't want to go through that. And I have like similar stories that I'll share next time as well.